Hello, my name is Michael O'Keefe, aka The Movie Wizard. If you enjoy this interview and want to hear more top-notch film industry conversations, please press the thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell to stay in the know. Shinya Tsukamoto has been called by film critics as a filmmaker concerned with a man's identity within Tokyo, but all that changes with Vital, a film he shot in a rural environment and is a pretty solid drama. The movie looks at the medical profession with some similar body horror motifs playing out again all these years after Tetsuo the Iron Man, but is far more earthbound and quiet than that film. Some of the acting is a little lifeless, but the storyline looking at some heavy mental health issues is compelling, and I was happy to see the actor who plays Boss Tanaka in Kill Bill Volume 1 in this movie. While it's not the most exciting drama you'll likely see in your whole life, the change of pace with a returning motif is cool, and there are lots of lovely picturesque shots that perhaps will make this worth your time. Tetsuo 2 Body Hammer is not a direct sequel to Tetsuo the Iron Man, but a slightly more mainstream interpretation of the original material. Notably, the protagonist is now a family man, and there is a higher budget, but not too high. While the movie has some crazy images like the first one, it is ultimately too pandery to satisfy original fans and too weird to have that desired crossover appeal to mainstream audiences. Also, it is in color, which at first I thought would make it more enjoyable, but it is another decision that lacks the unique quality that the original possesses. I kept wanting to see the craziness displayed in that one. Near the end, there is higher production value, seen with Crazy Things, the Tetsuo verse is known for, but it was too little too late in my opinion, so the fundamental problem with this movie is the lack of an existing audience. Kotoko is a movie based on a real woman who sees double of everyone, so needless to say, she has an anxiety-inducing life, and this movie will make you feel quite anxious as well. It is like a mental health horror movie. The doubles are always threatening, and I feel terrible that a Japanese woman had a similar experience in real life. While movies amp things up for dramatic effects, it is still a sad story that it is based on. Kotoko shows some messed up stuff, and Shinya Tsukamoto gives one of my favorite performances by him in this film as an author who dates Kotoko for a period of time for reasons that are a little perplexing. He offers the audience's perspective to an extent as someone who wants to take care of Kotoko, but is pushed away because she is not mentally able to accept his offering. This movie is strong visually, is well acted, and pretty effective. The Adventure of Denchu-Kozo is a proto-Tetsuo the Iron Man. You truly see the technical approach developing, and while the plot is sloppy and the acting is amateurish, the technical side of things is really fun to see. It is a movie clearly affected by budget, but Tsukamoto is experimenting with the craft of cinema and developing his singular vision and take on movies, so it ends up having the opposite effect of Tetsuo 2 Body Hammer, and I actually prefer it. This movie is no pander, it lacks refinement, and that is perfectly fine given that it led to Tetsuo the Iron Man, and when watching it, you can see a style emerging. Thankfully, the film is less than an hour, so it remains a fun insight into a seminal Japanese filmmaker of his time, and lives on as a fun exercise instead of an isolated quality piece of work. This movie is just for people who have seen Tetsuo the Iron Man or other films by Tsukamoto and want to be a completist. Ballet sees Tsukamoto return to black and white photography, as well as another urban story with some stylized violence, gritty themes, etc. It is a very good film for that, but also not as strong as the work of Takashi Miike or Takashi Kitano, who were doing similar films at that time, so it does fail in comparison, but I do believe it is also worth consuming. The reason being is while certainly Miike is more visually distinct at this type of film, Tsukamoto brings a different, perhaps softer sensibility that fares well in terms of intelligence, integrity, and ethics. The Solid Metal Nightmares box set was a huge and wonderful discovery for me, however, seeing Ballet reinforces to me why it is not mentioned in the same sentences as movies such as Fudo or Sonatine. It is still a strong entry into this genre that is distinct, of quality, and worth consideration for viewing. Tokyo Fist has all the kinetic energy of Tetsuo the Iron Man, and even some of the visual style, but it is an entirely different movie, more like Raging Bull by the way of a V-Cinema master in the 1990s. It looks at a love triangle with Tsukamoto playing the main character, who when he loses his wife, he becomes engaged in boxing, which sums up the intense feelings and rage of his unfortunate sex life. Tokyo Fist remains an interesting documentation of the director's take on living in the big city of Tokyo. And while it is certainly the 90s V-Cinema Raging Bull, that doesn't mean it's as good as Raging Bull. I don't want to get that misinterpreted. It is a fun and gritty movie, though, and should not that should not deter you from watching it. I just want to explain what I meant when I label it as a Scorsese-esque. Check it out, especially if you live in a big city like boxing or both. Haze is a very cool and strange horror movie that looks at two people trapped somewhere very unpleasant, but the theme is not so horrific as it is elemental in a twist. It is about consciousness and unconsciousness. When you're awake, life is one way, and you're asleep, other thoughts and feelings can emerge and take over what you thought you had a lid on. It is truly pumping in you sometimes more than ever. This fascinating project defies categorization as a film or short in my opinion, as it is 49 minutes and has the intensity of any feature-length film, but still to me is sort of neither a film nor a short. What other project can say that about itself? I don't know if any other one does, so that thing alone is an accomplishment, but the real accomplishment is that it is a transition from cerebral idea into something engaging to watch that does not come across as boring or pretentious. Killing is a movie I saw at the 2018 edition of TIFF with a team of Indians who had a Midnight Madness movie that year called The Man Who Feels No Pain, which is a fun story to tell you, but unfortunately I did not fully appreciate this film. It was on my radar, though, during the festival. I wanted to really like it, and then I found it a little too soft, lacking the impact I wanted from a samurai movie. But having gone through this box set with a second viewing, I can now appreciate the movie much more. Shinya Tsukamoto had recently acted in Martin Scorsese's Silence, so it seems natural that he would make a samurai movie, or at least a period film. This one is pacifist in themes, that is a veiled criticism of Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. While I picked up on the pacifism in this movie in 2018, I am still not acquainted with Abe's foreign policy enough to really get into that topic, but it is always rewarding when a period piece is reflective of contemporary times. I love seeing Tsukamoto wield a samurai sword in this movie, which has some fun action and characteristically is contemplative in a way that I can now expect for this very cool director. A Snake of June is truly a treat to watch. It is a psychosexual thriller shot in a blue filter that I believe fans of the genre will find very little to complain about, as they will be fully engaged during its duration. The stalker phone call scenes truly gripped me in terms of a real threat and the haunting detail the stalker was able to ascertain about his victims. So this movie works in terms of sentiment, but more importantly, it is a story that is grippingly well done. This movie is really up there with Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, David Lynch's Blue Velvet, or Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. It's just a deep cut by a deep cut director. So ultimately, it is so satisfying to find and watch if you like this style. If you don't like psychosexual thrillers, you should really reconsider doing a triple bill of the previously mentioned films, so you will one day be able to experience A Snake of June to the best of your abilities. Tetsuo the Iron Man is the first Shinya Tsukamoto movie I saw. It was in high school, and immediately I thought of how it felt like a precursor to Aronofsky's Pi, so naturally also Requiem for a Dream, with the way how the stop motion is frantically done. Of course, now I see it's also like the Japanese Eraserhead. It has themes that David Cronenberg looked at in Videodrome, with metal fetish and the new state of existence we live in light of technology. The sexual component is truly intense in this movie, as is the entire 1 hour experience, which I can only recommend to the strong-willed movie watcher, but oh boy, this movie delivers those goods. While Tsukamoto gets pigeonholed as the guy who made Tetsuo, this movie still remains unique within his filmography. His other movies are much more earthbound. Still, in my mind, this is his most cinematic work because of its visual strengths